Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful and very humbled to be joined by a fellow self-sabotage coach, but he's so much more than that. He was a doctor. He's a divine healer, subconscious healer. He's a really powerful man and an awesome man. I listened to his chat with Tanner about a month or two ago and really wanted to get in touch and reach out and get him on my show today. This is Dr. Gabe Roberts. Thank you for jumping on today, mate. You got an awesome story. Looking forward to my listeners hearing it and seeing it. If you want to just delve straight into you and delve into your work and your university, which is open now as well. And I'm looking forward to this conversation today. So I'll just mute my microphone and you can speak away, mate. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Likewise, Nathan. Great to connect today, and thanks for having me on your podcast. So we can just kind of go wherever you want to. What my specialty is basically psychosomatic medicine. Psyche meaning soul, soma meaning physical body. What this means is my specialty is working with people that have had tremendous medical challenges, mystery illnesses of every kind, physiological illnesses that are just not responding to both conventional and alternative care, that have at its root cause repressed emotions, and usually from childhood traumas of some sort. So my specialty is working with people that have had mystery illnesses that are rooted in something from childhood.
That's powerful. Because I know when I've done some of my work, I've gone back into the womb and really delved into those inner emotions. And as Paul Linder says in his book, some of those suppressed emotions over time do cause cancer, don't they? Or amongst many other things too, not just cancer.
I would say that that's the most significant overlooked cause of cancer. And not everyone exposed to toxins gets sick, but everyone who is sick, whether it's chronic illness, whether it's physiological illness, or whether it's cancer, is emotionally, they have emotional turbulence, emotional chaos going on under the surface. So it's not a matter of just what's going on in your environment, which I don't dismiss that, but you're looking at a world today that 75% of our rain is estimated to have glyphosate in it. So we are all walking around toxic, exposed to astronomical amounts of toxins, but not everyone gets sick. There's some people that have no allergy responses, and there's some people that are basically allergic to everything. And what's the root cause of that has kind of been my life's journey over the last decade. And what I found is it's ultimately the self-mutilation program put in place by the subconscious mind, which is the most powerful goal-achieving agency known to humanity.
It's so powerful because, just delving into that quickly, because there's a lot of kids and children out there with all these different allergies since like some kids are allergic to grass, mate. It just makes so much sense, doesn't it? So I'm seeing it in schools.
Right, it does. And a lot of times these kids are allergic to something in life, or something in life that's threatening. They don't trust the process of life. And when you're looking at it in young kids, it's definitely something that they picked up, that their perceptions have been built by the people around them, and the people around them were highly stressed out at the time. And when you see these rates of cancer going up, astronomical, 2 to 1 now. But it's not just the toxic environment, it's the stress that people are under. The anxiety right now is the number one growing condition in North America. So when you have this not trusting the process of life, and you have people that are love starved, not connected, basically what happens is when they have children, those children become the recipients of these kind of programs, and you start to see that at a very early age.
Yeah, you do, and I see it too. It's like at a soul level, they know they actually know what's going on, but they can't express that, I guess, can they? Because it just makes sense.
But at a soul level, they came into this life for a reason. They
Mm.
oftentimes, when you see that, their soul already had a contract written out, so they're here for usually people around them, usually to teach somebody in their family something to improve. For example, I knew a man where I used to live who was a neighbor, and he at one time was a friend. You know, we'd meet at tea shops and have these really cool conversations. An Australian man, he had a cool Australian accent, and you know, we talked about just all kinds of things, box jellyfish and the blue ringed octopus, and you know, intention in the mind, because that's been my passion for the last decade, is what the mind is and how the mind works and how the mind is basically infinite. And this man had a son with Down syndrome. And at one point in our conversations, he said, you know, I just can't imagine somebody like me having a kid with Down syndrome. And at the time, this was years back, at the time, I didn't have enough spiritual maturity to know what was going on. Now I do know. His son is that way for him to learn. And the sad point is, if you don't learn, accept, I'll promise you, the next go around and the next life will be even worse. So when we look at children that are born with those kind of things, or even children that have lots of sickness, lots of illness, things like that, their soul knew that before they've ever came into that body. So it's there to teach the parents a lesson, or somebody around a lesson. It's there to teach them how to be better people. Right.
Mm. How did you get into so I will just veer back. So obviously you started as we'll go deep into that later, but you started off as your normal general medical practitioner doctor. Is that right?
No, actually, what happened was I've got a degree in chiropractic. So I've got a license in chiropractic in 4 states, but that was after some research. Going back, I had a very severe childhood myself, very abusive, physical abuse, emotional abuse, all kinds of things, to where when I was a teenager, I was, you know, sorely in with the wrong crowd, doing a lot of things to soothe myself without even knowing why. So you're talking lots of addictions. Barely graduated high school. By the time I was 18, I was doing meth quite heavy, and just doing those things that would have easily put me in the trajectory of prison or death. And so around the age of 20, I had this moment to where I realized I got to change. I got to do something different. And I didn't have the strength at the time. I know why now, but I didn't have the strength to leave those acquaintances. I was around them every night. We were doing the same things, causing trouble, doing lots of drugs. So I made a radical decision. The only thing I knew of that would save my life is I joined the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marine Corps and became a combat veteran, started working overseas, and was the sole purpose for getting my mind straight. I went in there for one reason only, and that was to find leadership and to find people, because I never knew my father growing up. So I needed some kind of, you know, leadership, some kind of father figure that would help me get my mind straight. And I went in there and I put 100% in, and I got 100% back. And somewhere along the lines, I saw that some of the corruption, I saw some of the things going on at higher levels that I just didn't agree with. So when I got out, I was so used to having chaos under the surface. You could just feel it in me. People around me could just feel the tension and the chaos under my skin, even if we're sitting there and we're not even talking. That's a whole nother aspect of the mind that has to do with our proprioceptive grid, that is also known as the human torus field, that's about 8 feet in diameter, that is measurable with instruments, that extends outside of our body. And it has a direct link to our proprioceptive nervous system. Interoception, body feelings deep down, one of the things that keeps you from feeling when you squish when you walk. We're about 75% water. So if you've ever carried a bucket of water, it jiggles. We do that when we walk, but we don't feel that way. And that's because of the interoceptive nervous system we have, kind of like an electric transducer, reduces that down. Then we have exteroceptive perception, which is outside of our body. And that is a very unique sensory system we have. It's what we can sense when somebody's staring at us. It's the ability for us to sense other people's moods that are nearby, that perhaps if you're doing something in the kitchen or just kind of minding your own business, somebody comes in, you can instantly tell if they're in a fit of rage just by them being nearby. That's that proprioceptive grid. So, but it has mechanoreception, electromagnetic sensitivity, and nociception, which is pain, and a few other little space and time. So spatial recognition and time. So people just knew that there was chaos under the surface. Got out of the Marine Corps. I started working as a paramedic. I worked in a hospital for a few years in the emergency room and in the back of ambulances, just very high speed, high chaos scenarios. And around this time, it started to take a toll on me. I started to have like lots of flashbacks and started to have some symptoms. And at this time, I was also getting very heavily into nutrition and fitness. I was doing all kinds of things to try to take care of myself physically. And along that journey, one of my friends introduced me to chiropractic. And doing a little research on chiropractic, it says that it teaches you to hone in on the body's own ability to heal. That made a lot of sense to me. So went to chiropractic college, immediately got into energy medicine. My wife, Tiffany, actually introduced me into some people that showed me that energy medicine was much more scientific than what academic authorities and medical professionals were showing me in the academic setting. So I would go in here to get my degree, and I would be over here studying things considered taboo, like the kinesiology you're talking about, the muscle testing and resonance scanning and quantum integration, and doing all these different things that were very effective and very cool. And the reason I was driven to do this was to calm that chaos down inside of me. Because by this time I had severe PTSD. Anytime the sun would go down, I would just be in a breakout of sweat. My heart would be racing. And this happened all the time. So I knew that there was something going on the surface that I wasn't finding answers for. And this led me to, and by this time I was in functional medicine, had a diplomate in nutrition, and I was working with thousands of people specializing in emotions and chronic illness. So parasites, stealth infections, and things like that. And what I found was I was hitting limits on what I was doing for myself as far as my ability to resolve that conflict. And I noticed that my patients, about 85 to 90% of them, would reestablish illness somehow, some way, unintentionally, not their fault, within 6 months to a year after going through a palliative care with treatment with us, going through acupuncture, going through breathing techniques and all these other things. Within 6 months to a year, either their illness would return or they would have an entirely new illness. And long story short, we ended up realizing that the same plateau I had was the same plateau we were reaching with them. It's like we were not getting to the root cause. So this led me to start studying the mind in great detail. Everything from the CIA's files on remote viewing, the Soviet sports psychology secrets and what they used in the Olympics for switching on their athletes to take the gold in the 1960s. All their athletes took the gold, and the Olympics just came out of nowhere and did it. To master level hypnotherapy techniques, neurolinguistic programming, anything I could find that had to do with the mind, I started to study. And what I found out was it's all about what happens to us first, meaning in the womb, and it's all about the perceptions that we build and the perceptions that get reinforced over time become the template or the measuring apparatus for how we evaluate everything in our life as adults. That's where all the chaos came from. Once I realized that, like a bloodhound, I started to search out every little thing I could find inside myself and replace that chaos with calm. And in a matter of time, I was doing that with my patients, and I noticed that the results were night and day, and I knew I was onto something then. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And the research that my wife and I continue to do, and our mastermind group continues to do, there's no ceiling to this level of work. I don't care what anyone says. There's just no ceiling. Like the more you learn, the more you learn, the more you learn, and the more you realize you don't know.
Mm.
So we've reverse engineered all these different techniques from around the globe and taken what we could, like little Lego pieces, and put it together in something that is very collaborative and seems to be very effective. Most of the people that come and work with me say that, and they've usually tried everything from EMDR to hypnosis, to body code, emotional code, things that I'm versed in as well, Psych K, and without a doubt, they say this is something way deeper than anything I've experienced before. And I know it's my soul's contract. I know it's what I was here to do. When you do this kind of work, and you probably get that at a deep level, it's not work that you choose, it's work that chooses you.
I got goosebumps. You're
And
spot on.
right.
Yeah.
And in doing that, um, when you know your soul's purpose and you're on your golden footprints, what the Taoists say, finding your original face, what the traditional Chinese refer to as Ming, which is your personal journey. When you realize you're on that golden footprints, it's like the universe parts way and delivers to you, all the pieces necessary to fulfill that journey.
Spot on. I had goosebumps when you said that last couple of minutes, because it's what I rediscovered too, was finding my life's purpose. And you said before that you had a lot of chaos going on. So how were you able to calm that chaos down? Because I know there'll be a lot of people that will resonate with this, and they want to know, well, how was he able to calm that down? So how were you able to calm all that chaos down and then find your purpose during your 20s?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a couple different ways to do change work. There's layered hypnosis, which is where you relax your mind. What you're doing is putting the conscious mind, which acts kind of like a bar bouncer. You're trying to get into the bar, you're trying to get to the club. The bouncer determines, hey, you don't have the right vibe, you don't have the right fit, beat it. And you suddenly come up and say, hey, can I get in now? And you throw a wad of cash towards the guy, or you say, hey, go out for pizza. So you send him out for pizza so you can sneak in the back door. That's essentially what hypnosis is doing, bypassing that conscious barrier that's controlled by the subconscious, the protective mind, going in and working with the subconscious mind. What I found is, if you don't get to the deep roots and you're trying to impress something into the subconscious mind, where the deepest roots, the most powerful memories we have are from the womb to about 3 to 4 years old. If you're trying to press something into the subconscious, it will flex its might and fight back, almost like saying, hey, I know who I am, and it's not this. So that could be many of the drawbacks when people have that chaos. More than likely, it came from something that occurred in the womb. And once that perception's there, that perception is protected by a barrier. So for me, there's that way of working, and then there's, of course, regression to cause, which is where the real power is. And there's many attempts to do regression, but what I found is regression's not as easy as some people make it out to be. The subconscious mind oftentimes is protective, so it can bounce you off to various memories without you even knowing it. It can ricochet you. If it's protective, let's say you had something really traumatizing occur in your life, and you ask you ask your mind to take you back to that scene, that scenario, the very first time it happened. You could go back and your subconscious could get the hint of it saying, we'll go anywhere but there, and it ricochets you, it changes you, sends you off chasing squirrels. And if you're not aware of that, um, the subconscious will be like dancing and laughing at you. The symptoms will be kind of laughing at you while you're off chasing squirrels. So, or you could get to that moment, but it's not revealing to you all the details. It's not going to give you all the pieces that you need to experience. You mentioned if you went to the womb and there's feelings in there, which there always is some kind of repressed feelings. If you can feel those feelings, uh, which is very important, you're allowed to get those feelings out. Those feelings don't really have power over you anymore. But if you keep them repressed, if you hit a memory and it's not showing you everything, or you go chasing squirrels and you're not able to experience those feelings, it's in my book, the way I describe it to my students is it's a pocket of venom. It's literally a pocket of venom. So it's not just a holographic imprint, and it's not just a pocket consciousness where the past is literally alive inside of you. That's what's going on. Memories are not just a simple recording, and memories are not just like a snapshot of visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory detail. They're literally like a living version of yourself stuck in a moment that is almost waiting for you to go back and give them the needs they need, have the emotional spirituality to deal with what happened, and have the love and forgiveness for whoever was responsible for causing that to you. That's the real healing, is the love and forgiveness. But for every unit of energy that a person keeps repressed, like Paul was talking about, for every unit of energy a person keeps repressed, it requires an equal, if not greater amount of energy to keep it there. So that's where over time, things start to, your resources begin to get depleted. You have more and more what's called the law of compounding, a universal law. When you have a perception built in the womb, and let's just say the most common one that I regress to when it comes to cancer or autoimmune is many times we have to ricochet around and we have to have the subconscious take us there. And I've got to coach the person on getting to that spot, not coach them, but I have to let them know that, hey, we can't go anywhere you're not willing to go. So once we get there, reveals the details to us. What happens then is we have to drain that pocket of venom, and we have to extract it out, get rid of every bit of it. Because if you just go in and you change a perception, which is very common with some work, if you go in and just change a perception, you have that emotional charge left in there. You keep that pocket of venom there. The person's results will be short term every time. So there's a lot to it, and although I'm kind of talking about this is more usually of the extreme end of traumatized people. So when it comes to someone who, just like in our university, what we're talking about is this echelon of chronic illnesses. And if you could look at a scale from the lighter end of illnesses, from somebody that has mild viral infections that sometimes come up, they have arthritic pains, they have fatigue, and they have night sweats, to where as it starts getting up, they have a little bit more maybe skin conditions. And as it starts getting heavier and heavier, then you're getting into the autoimmune. Then you get into the polyautoimmune, where they have multiple autoimmune systems involved. Then you get into the chronic conditions like cancer. As you go up, you're going to see more and more and heavier compressed feelings in every one of those people as it goes up. And as the compression goes up, that perception becomes like a titanium plate. So you have to know how to burst that plate, release the venom properly, and then immediately fill that void with healing frequencies, the proper kind of healing frequencies, because you don't want to leave a void. So usually on that end, it can when we get to that kind of work with the nastier group, my rule is let it be as nasty as it needs to be. Let it be as sad as it needs to be. Because once you let that stuff out, it doesn't have power over you anymore. And through all the years of doing energy medicine, what I found is somebody on this end here, if you apply a light technique, it helps, it works. You take that same light technique and you start applying it up here, like a chiropractic adjustment, for instance. Pretty light technique. Massage therapy, pretty light technique. As you go up the scale, you notice that suddenly that treatment's ineffective. You need something like acupuncture, cranial sacral, best, things like that. And as you apply that technique further up the scale, soon it becomes ineffective. And so on and so on and so on.
Yeah. It's just I could listen to you speak all day, mate. Like, it's just I haven't got any words for what you just said, because it's so like it's so deep. Like we go, like, people hand their power away and go and see these different people, but they're not dealing with that real root emotion, because it gets suppressed in the body. It's like, deal with that underlying, because we're all looking for those short-term fixes, aren't we? Basically, in society, everyone's looking for that pill or that magic person to say, fix me, fix me, fix me, when in actual fact, like, if you can go back to those deep-rooted seated issues, you can actually heal yourself.
Right. Everything you need is everything you need is within you.
Exactly.
So based on quantum physics, okay, quantum physics is the most valid of all sciences today. And basically, in a nutshell, it says that everything that ever has existed or will exist is right here, right now for us. In other words, what that means is we all have access to a cosmic internet of infinite possibility and probability. So there's these infinite amounts of manifestations waiting to come into physical form. And if you talk about the evidence for this, it's quite astounding. People that just some of the work that I've reviewed is Spontaneous Institute of Spontaneous Remission and Nomadic Sciences has well over 3,500 peer-reviewed published journals on people that have had these miraculous healings. One of them I was reading was a hospital in India where there was a ward, and this room was filled with paralyzed people. Some of them have been there 6 years, 10 years, of various ages. There was probably about 9 or 10 people in this room that were all paralyzed. And suddenly this large cobra just comes crawling in the window. And in about 35 seconds, it was the only occupant in that room. So what happened? Well, same thing with Dr. Hamill's account in London gives an account in the literature of a man who lived next to him who was crippled, and he had 2 children, and then he was crippled, and he was in an apartment building, and the apartment caught on fire, and the fire was working its way from the bottom up, and this man looked at his kids, and the fear of watching his children burn up in him made him throw his crutches down. He grabbed his kids and ran down the stairs and walked for about 30 years after that. Same thing we hear with in UK. There was a girl, and I can't quite remember her name. Her father's under a vehicle, working under a vehicle. The jack stands failed, falls on top of her dad. This little girl goes over and picks the car up. Her dad crawls out from underneath it. And later on, they had 3 men try to lift that car, and they couldn't do it. 3 grown men could not lift that car that this little, like 11-year-old girl lifted up. What happened in all these cases? An infinite possibility. Our mind is unlimited in its ability to do things, whatever it is. And when you understand that, you're not playing by the typical rules of the Newtonian physics, the 3D geometry that we're used to, that all our educational system and our medical system, and even my chiropractic education was all corrupted by. You're playing by the quantum physics, and that is a whole other ballgame. So when they hear the words, everything's available to you, whatever you want, whatever it is you desire, everything's here right now. So why aren't people experiencing it? It has to do with their perceptions that they built that act as perceptual filters that reprioritize and reorganize the information that they pay attention to. So they aren't seeing it because there are almost blinders put in place. And so some of the work that I do in healing this is using specific words to bridge them to those possibilities, bridge them to those infinite possibilities that already exist right here, right now, and connecting them back to the moment before that human experience. Because when we're conceived, all we still know is one with divine, one with infinite. Whenever we leave the physical body, that's the first thing that happens. I've studied about 300 near-death experiences in depth, interviewed over half a dozen people, asked them in depth what happens when we leave the physical body. What happens when you got in that car accident and just as easy as stepping out of a chair, walking out of from leaving a kitchen table, stepping out of a chair, just as easily and effortless as that, they left the physical body momentarily. So what happens when 300 people do that is there's a very, very common occurrence, a very common theme, and it's bliss, it's light, it's an acceptance like they've never even imagined. A near-death experience could be more appropriately called near life experience because these people experienced a moment of life with zero burdens and realizing that at once they were everywhere. At once they were everywhere at the speed of thought, almost like a dream state that you just don't wake up from. And that's our true essence. So you could say at that moment, you could say we're one with divine. That's what happens when we leave the physical body. And that's where I've picked up some of this stuff about soul contracts and things like that, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. So what happens when we're born is we start out that way. It's like our soul is infinite, only knows that, only knows bliss, only knows harmony. And for it to realize anything different, it has to go through the experience of getting on Earth school and becoming a human being momentarily. Once it leaves the physical body, it's almost like, my God, everything was just fake. This was fake. This was all, my whole life was just like a high school play, you know? I mean, that's literally what it's like. So when you can realize that, when you can realize that you're infinitely connected in the physical body, everything starts to change. Everything starts to change. But when it comes to manifesting health, manifesting physical wealth, manifesting life you want, I will tell you this. Most people won't do it. Most people will not do what's required. They will not do what's required because in order for them to do that, they have to clean up their stuff.
Yes.
They have to clean up their own garbage. They have to do that. And most people will not do that.
Why is that?
Because it's a mirror effect. They don't see it, and it's something blind to them. It's something better for them to judge. For instance, you want to manifest a good life, you better stop judging every single person, including yourself. I mean, you want to be one that's completely harmonized, love and peace and everything like that. You have to stop judging every people, including what beverages they have, including what marriages they choose to do, everything. Because whatever's happening is already in that soul contract. And you trying to be a force fighting that is really you almost become what you're trying to fight against. You can only fight that by becoming a better example. And becoming the better example means no judgment, love and forgiveness for all. Love and forgiveness for all. And why don't people want to do that? They just don't want to go deep enough. They don't want to go deep enough.
That advice was spot on.
So I did a webinar this last weekend, and it was about the art of manifesting. And basically, in the beginning of that, I talk about all the different things I've studied, from Hermetic principles to traditional Chinese medicine to things the CIA talks about, remote viewing and Project Stargate, things that are declassified. All these things that basically point out anything that has tremendous leverage, an ability to do significant change, has been hidden from you. And these things were all part of one system long ago, before any religion, before any organization of things. They were all part of one system. And through thousands of years, they've been split in various cultures and various continents. And what my wife and I have done with other teachers and mentors that we've talked with and studied, have reverse engineered some of these pieces to put that one system back together in a whole piece. And one of the first things I said was, if you want to manifest the life you want, I will say this: 9 out of 10 people won't do it. Even if the tools are in front of them, they just won't go as far as they need to go. And what I mean by that is, get to the point when you can go one day in your life without getting triggered by one external environment outside of you. Somebody says somebody posts something on Facebook, somebody message you, somebody cuts you off in traffic. Somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that. If you can go through the day and not have one body trigger, forget emotions. Emotions are never the problem. People that clear emotions, it's equivalent to peeling one spine off of a cactus, gritting tweezers and pulling a spine off a cactus and saying, there, it's less threatening now, isn't it? Because from the latest neuroscience, our memories are not real. Our memories are not real. And our emotions are completely reconstructed as well. So it's not the memories that we have, and it's not the emotions we feel that's the problem. Those are all collaborated and reconstructed based on our perception of something that happened to us. So we have a primary event, and then we have these secondary events that we begin to form stories about. You see, our brain has 3 layers, and it's the conscious, lying, rational brain that gets all the attention. It's the one that people are always working from. Whenever I work with people and they've seen various hypnotists or various healers or various therapists, I find it whenever they were working with this professional or this doctor, it might be, or an acupuncturist, usually they're following the trail of where the conscious, lying, rational mind is showing them. So it's, again, like I said earlier, chasing squirrels, right? So we have a lying, rational mind that's wonderful at creating rationals, which is a rational lie, justifications, and very convincing stories on why things are the way they are, that have no basis on any kind of universal laws, universal principles, or any deep-seated truths within us. And that's one of the reasons that people don't get any farther as well. They're too busy listening to that conscious, lying, rational mind, and they're absolutely convinced that it's telling them what to do, and what they're doing is the real deal. And again, if it's not based on universal law or universal principle, it's not a sound approach.
Would you say that's the ego? Is that like another term for the ego?
Right. I mean, it could be that as well. The ego is pushing the divine out. So, but yeah, it could be that.
Yeah, because I was in that place for such a long time. I'm only 28 now, but I felt I was in that place for such a long time. I was very conscious, ego driven. I've had to learn to go back into my heart space and allow and feel things again. That's been one of my lessons over the last 3 or 4 years, is being able to go back into my heart and feel things and start to process things that way, and then not let the ego take over. And you're spot on about the triggering too, because I was triggered by nearly everything when I first started awakening to different things like stories and people and traffic and all those things. But I've got to a point now where I'm probably only having 1 or 2 triggers a day. So over time, you can get to that space. It just takes time. But yeah, what you were saying before was resonating with me because I'm almost at that spot where I can have a day where I don't get triggered. Like I'm almost almost there.
And I'll tell you what, Nathan, that's fantastic. Well done.
Thank you.
At your age, well done. I mean, you have and going into your heart space is very important. Your heart's a second. Your heart is actually your primary brain. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Your heart is your primary brain. And over the years, if you look at different cultures from around the world, they have different mantras. They have different, they have different things where their hands gestures, where they're always referring to the heart. Different prayers and different things where their hands are always over their heart space. And why that is, it's because when you have your hand here, it's easy to put your focus and your attention right there. You feel your hand pressing against your chest. It's easy for you to kind of get out of your brain and get into the heart, where the heart isn't biased and it doesn't have all those perceptual filters. It'll tell you how it is, whether you want to hear it or not. And that's a good place to be. That's a good place to start. Is going in that heart space, feeling the things you need to feel, processing them correctly. And at your age, that's an extraordinary feat, for sure. So you should feel very proud of yourself and know that you're on a journey that's only going to continue to get better. And as you do this, you're going to be able to create the life that you desire, rather than just kind of having things randomly just kind of bump you around.
Because one of my biggest lessons has been patience. Because when I first did my healing with this friend of mine, who I really want you to connect with, she saw, and I saw all this like amazing things I was going to be doing, and I wanted it like right now. I was like that little kid in school wanting things now. It's like whoa! You've got to strip back that onion and really feel things and learn why you were doing the things that you were doing and being the person you were being. So then drop back into your heart space and just follow that. Basically, when I'm in my ego state, because I'm very reactive to people and stuff. But if I'm in my heart space, like that's like my protection. Like you're not getting in there. Like I'm in there and I'm coming from a space of pure love. That's just my protection. Like it's just been a lesson for me. Is like that patience as well.
Right. And just like anything else, just like flexing any kind of muscle, the more that you can go into that heart space, the more quickly that connection turns from a dirt path, like a rough, rocky road dirt path that a donkey would perhaps be able to navigate, to kind of more of a woven dirt path, to your single lane dirt road, to a double dirt road, to now a paved road, to 3 lanes of paved road, to a super highway. And that's just kind of the essence of neuroplasticity. But the more you can go into that heart space, the more you can rapidly go into there. And what I call it is being in alignment with divine. Okay. Being in alignment with divine, when you're in alignment with divine, I'll tell you this, there's no misery, because the things you see in this very delicate, incontrite universe always has some kind of purpose. And we're only aware of 0.006%. That's all our conscious mind is aware of. And that's the lying rational mind. That's the loud part of us that speaks the loudest, demands the most attention, is the weakest, least informed part of us, and the last to know anything. And yet we're typically listening to that part of ourselves. But when you're in alignment with divine or in your heart space, it's like you can tell when you get out of alignment. And it's what I would equate it to is when you're driving down the road and you start hitting those rumble strips, something's off. You start to kind of worry, or you start to judge others, or you start to judge yourself or something, and you make the correction, you get right back on. And when you're in that kind of in tune with the infinite like that, I mean, things happen pretty fast. Things happen. And if they're not happening right now, it means that there's still, something that you're supposed to learn along the way. One of the things that I have learned is you can have anything you want, be anyone you want, if you can become the kind of person that those things can happen to. So, what's that mean? It means getting rid of those icky background feelings that are the ones that are tell you you can't, you don't deserve it, you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, all of those things, you know. So I kind of call it the jet engine and the anchor analogy. Most people want things. They go to webinars, they go to seminars, they hear people speak, and they decide, yeah, I want that. I want that for myself. I want that greater life. I want, freedom. I want to be, happy and healthy and strong and all those things. And it's like they put high octane fuel on that jet. They hit the thruster and they start making that jet go faster. And at the same time, these little icky background body feelings began to show up. And those are the anchors. And what you're inadvertently doing is creating more drag. And you can put more thrust into it and you create much more drag. And that's what keeps people stuck as well. They don't know what those body feelings are, those little icky background body feelings. And whenever someone says, just believe it. Or if somebody says, I want you to just say, I love myself. I love myself. Just say that out loud and notice the feeling that comes up. Say, I deserve success. Notice the little feelings that come up. I deserve happiness and wealth. Notice the little uncomfortable feelings that come up. Those are the holographic imprints, which are the anchors. And you can put more thrust in. You can try to blow up the image that you want, vision boards, positive affirmations, all of those things. And what you're inadvertently doing is putting more thrust in the jet and creating much more drag.
How do you, yeah, that's interesting. How do you get rid of that underlying drag? Because I was just saying that some of that stuff to myself then, and I'm like, oh, I'm aware of some interest. Like, you're helping me live on air here. What I had a little bit of something come up just then when I said I deserve success and happiness. Like, how would I then?
See, those are the dominant feelings.
Yeah.
Welcome to your dominant feelings. That's what I taught in the manifestation courses. See, most people ignore those because they're subtle. They're very subtle. But those are the dominant feelings, and everything in our universe is wavelength form, vibration, frequencies. That's what the universe responds to. It doesn't respond to your wants. It doesn't respond to your desires or your wishes. It responds to who you are. And who you are is a holographic fractal information vibrational being. And whenever you say something like, I deserve success and happiness, and you say that to yourself, and you feel this little, first it feels good. You say it, you're like, yeah. And this little subtle little background body feeling shows up somewhere. Now, what that is a misalignment. There's some kind of holographic imprint in you that is showing itself to be in contrast to that. It's like a little hamster on a wheel that lays dormant until you give it a little shock and it starts running. And that body feeling is a vibration. It's a definite vibration, and it will contaminate the message that you're sending out to the universe. Now, some people say, well, it's not that big a deal. It's something, I can ignore. Let me just ask you this, okay? I've got this cup of green tea here, and it's organic and all that's good stuff. But this cup of green tea, if I were to look at this cup, and I have a Great Pyrenees dog that I live in the Ozark Mountains out here in the middle of nowhere, off the grid, practically. And if I went out in my yard somewhere and found the biggest piece of dog poo I could find, came in, and brought that dog poop in and just barely did this, just barely touched the top of that green tea here. Just barely touched the surface. Would you or anyone you know be willing to drink the very bottom of this with a straw? No way,
No,
right?
no way, no.
No chance, not a chance. Because that touching contaminates everything there.
Hmm.
That little icky body and that little body feeling in the background are your dominant thoughts. That is your dominant thought. And that contaminates the message you're trying to send out to the universe. And that the universe responds to vibrations, it responds to harmony, it responds to frequencies. It doesn't respond to anything else. Once you learn to clear up that signal and clear those, you take off like a rocket. Everything's in full alignment. And then you're looking at whatever your intention is, the universe responds to it. Have you ever heard of Renee Payock?
I've heard the name, yeah.
Renee Payock is a researcher from French PhD. He basically put baby chickens in an arena. And what he did, actually, he had this arena. So imagine like a shoebox.
Hmm.
And he put this robot in there. And I've read over the papers and I've studied it in depth along with other aspects of the mind. And this little robot he has looks like a coffee can with wheels, little green wrappers, and it has these wheels. And this robot is designed to roll around randomly all over the place. Just that's all it does. It rolls around 50% of the time it goes right, 50% of the time it goes left. It just moves all over the place randomly. Then he takes a day-old chicken, and day-old chickens don't have primary interventions. They don't have secondary things to where they're creating stories upon stories about stories like we do. They're pretty simple. We're the ones that get ourselves in trouble by all the stories we create about things going on. He puts this day-old chicken in with this robot, and the first moving object the chicken sees or duckling sees with its eyes, they automatically imprint with their mind beyond the body that it's the mom, and it starts following this robot around. This robot goes here, the baby chicken follows it. Robot moves here, baby chicken follows it. He takes the baby chicken out, puts it in a cage near that arena. So the baby chicken can see the robot, but it can't get near it. That robot stays only on that wall now. It stayed right near the baby chicken. Now that might sound strange, but even Jesus Christ back in his day, in what's called the Lost Gospel of Thomas, a part of the Bible that was removed during Constantine's era, where if you look at the King James Version, you see it's talking about an infant and suddenly he's 35, right? This gives some little bit more details of his actual life. In there, he's also talking about effective prayer, not prayer, effective prayer. How the quantum response to this quantum response, the nature of that infinite minus responsiveness, right? And in that, Jesus Christ says these words: if you can make the two into one, you can say to the mountain, move mountain, and the mountain will move. So what's the two into one mean? Conscious, subconscious mind, higher mind, lower mind. So if you can make those two into one, you're able to change matter. You're able to change things across the quantum. Like I said, not playing by the rules anymore of Newtonian physics. And even Jesus Christ said this, but he wasn't the first, of course, but he was also passing down the same message that there's a power within man to change matter when he's connected with both sides of himself in a pure way. And that's what I mean by you have to clear all the garbage out. You got to cut all those sandbags off. So if you're wanting more in depth on that, I've got a couple just simple webinars where I go into depth on how to clear those. I had people, I had a woman yesterday who had carried um, resentment from a past husband for cheating on her for 18 years. And it took me 7 minutes just dialoguing with her, showing her how to talk to this higher side of herself to completely get rid of 18 years of just pain and turmoil
Wow.
within 7 minutes. No regressions, no nothing else. Just able to access that code and completely change it. A man today had a severe phobia, and we were able to get rid of that in about 4 minutes. And these are all things that we have access to through universal laws. The law of
Mm-hmm.
correspondence is one. The law of correspondence basically is this, it's synergistic to the law of yin and yang. What that means is you cannot have one experience in your body without automatically having the code for its inverse, without automatically having its code for its opposite. That's why the yin and yang looks that way. And if you look at the way the neurology is laid out in the body, it plainly demonstrates that in the way it's wired. The nervous system cannot tell the difference between emotional pain or physical pain. It's identical on a brain scan. Emotional rejection as a child will show up just like they stepped on a nail. It shows up, the brain scan looks identical. Somebody who is emotionally warm towards a person, the brain feels the exact same way as if they're taking a drink out of a warm cup. It shows up the exact same way. If you go listen to a speaker somewhere, and they give you comfortable chairs to sit in, you're automatically, inherently, unconsciously going to be very comfortable with them. If they give you hard plastic fold-out chairs, you're automatically be a little more stiff towards them without even knowing it, because of the fractal way that our nervous system's wired. So fascinating.
Very. Giving me lots of food for thought here, mate. I'm gonna have to get in touch with one of those or a couple of those webinars, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Give me lots of yeah, because when I was saying those things to myself, I had those yeah,
Little
I had
icky
those
background
ill
feelings. Yeah,
bickering feelings.
see, those are the icky background feelings are the dominant thoughts.
Hmm.
Those are the holographic imprints, not the not the emotions, not the emotions. The emotions are reconstructed. Just for example, okay, your nervous system pathologically has to answer any question you give it. It has to answer any question you give it, right? Especially if you go into your heart and you ask questions there. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, I do it a couple of times a week. Yeah. Did it last night.
Yeah, you go into your heart, ask questions, and you'll sense an answer, right?
Uh,
Um, can you think of an experience, a moment that would give you anxiety? Think of something that would bring up anxiety. Can you think of that?
a moment that would bring up anxiety.
Can you bring up anxiety? Just the emotion of anxiety.
Yeah, well, I can go back to that little kid that was scared of speaking in public. I'll go back to that kid that was scared to talk to that girl he liked. Like
Okay.
there's those anxiety feelings there. There you go.
So you got the anxiety up. Okay, now ask yourself this simple question. Pay attention how it feels. What else might this be?
What else might this be?
Now, did you notice the anxiety changed suddenly?
Yeah.
It diminished quite a bit, didn't it? Because it wasn't anxiety that was the problem. See, what happens is I asked you to reconstruct something and you did. And whenever you did, your nervous system within nanoseconds asks a simple question. Have we ever felt this before in a language that is not verbal? And it scans and retreats and compares and contrasts everything that's ever happened to you all the way back to the womb within a matter of nanoseconds, creates a story, comes back, and puts this label of anxiety there. And when you say to yourself, what else could this be? It's like, okay, back to the drawing board. And when it's doing that, that label of anxiety up here just crumbles away
It did.
because it was a simple reconstruction. It wasn't even really the problem.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Makes a lot of sense because when I asked that question, I was like, it was like gone. That anxiety was gone.
Another good one is
What else
if
could
you're
this
in
be?
public, if you're around people and you start feeling something, and this is one I have to ask probably at least 2, 3 times a week to myself quietly. Go into a store, you know, I live out in the Ozarks, so whenever I drive into town, I start feeling feelings. I'll start having these little worries just kind of come up in my mind. And whenever I feel that, when I hear that, when I know that something's picking up, I always say, "Is this mine?" And it dissipates because it's not mine. Our brain
Yes.
is our brain is a receiver.
Mm.
It's not the source of consciousness. It's a receiver, and our thoughts extend out beyond our body in multiple ways. And I know I'm picking up people's thought energy in traffic and people's thought energy in the stores and department stores and restaurants and things like that. So then what you do is you just kind of armor up. You just say
Yeah,
something
I've done
like,
that.
right. And initially it might seem weak, but the more you do it, like anything else, it starts to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And even uh, having 91 Psalms as be part of that. See, the Psalms are prayers that have frequency in those words that are unmatched. And the 91st Psalms is very protective, more protective than anything I've seen, including sage, including anything I've tested in essential oils, certain herbs that are protective emotionally, Palo Santo, things like that that are protective from negative energy. Psalms or 91st Psalms in particular is very protective against that. So so protect.
I just imagine like a white light, and it's like mine, and it's like a bubble sort of bubble of light, and it's like my protection barrier of picking up people's things. That's what I do.
And that's perfect. I mean, that's
Mm.
absolutely perfect. I picture the same thing, and just whatever your imagination. See, Neville Goddard
Mm.
stated the imagination is the. He said imagination is the playground of God.
Yep.
So imagination is extremely powerful.
Mm.
Most of the time,
Absolutely.
we're using it against ourselves most of the time. But anything you can imagine, whether it's a white wall or whether it's sometimes I just picture like chain link mail, like armor, with 91 Psalm letters right there, Roman noodles, Roman numerals on the top of it. But
Mm.
anything you can imagine to protect yourself, and that is going to be of utmost importance with everything going on in the globe, the splitting that's occurring, um, the things like weather manipulation, all the things that are going on that are quite dark, but I don't put any attention towards it whatsoever. I don't try to fight it. I protect my family, no doubt, and I want to educate others, but to educate others means to allow them to be spiritually in time themselves, know how to protect them, know how to remind themselves what they are, you
Mm.
know, not pay attention to all the dark stuff and all that,
Yes.
because wherever you're putting your attention is where every your energy is going. And I hear about it. Don't get me wrong, I'm informed about it and I know about it, but me putting my attention toward isn't going to grow. What I need to do is show people how to get back to their true self.
Mm.
That's how we that's how we overcome this. Be a different example, you know. So, but don't get me wrong. I mean, I protect my yard. Uh, I train my family in firearm use and all of that stuff. I'm not naive about it, but I'm also not one to put all my attention towards that because throughout the millennia, there's been people that have survived disasters and tragedies and great illnesses and things like that by using protective essences, protective prayers. I think one of the most powerful ones that a person can use is divine law and order govern my life. When you have an identity of divine law and order govern my life, you will avoid disaster. You'll avoid having to get on a boxcar. You'll avoid things that people are putting their attention towards. You won't be in a car that breaks down on a highway. You won't be in the wrong relationship. You'll never be broke. You are not going to be subjected to these things that we keep hearing about. How do you think it's been passed down in time? People have been protected in the caves from the mouths of lions. They didn't have spears. They had something else. And that is a metaphor. I mean, that is a definite parable, which means what the inner meaning of it. What parable means, a parabolus, which means it rungs alongside it, the inner meaning of it. It doesn't mean literally a man was spared by the mouth of the lion. It means he was spared when all the other stuff was happening to the people that were, obsessed with it and paying close attention to it and fighting and all this other stuff. So we're at a very interesting crossroads right now. And as a healer, my job is not to get people worked up about all the stuff going on in the world, because it's already been arranged through soul contracts.
Yes.
All the people that took the vaccine, their souls knew they were doing it. That might be hard for some people to swallow. But as one of my mentors was telling me, whenever we see children come into this world and die early ages, we see a baby come into the world and they die at 1 or 2, and people are worked up and people are upset and people are blaming the medical system and they're blaming doctors and everything else. They're blaming this, they're blaming that. That soul was not 1 year old. That soul was not an infant. That soul that came on was there to teach the people around him something. And we can get all upset and blame the doctors and call them butchers and everything else. And I get it. I mean, my daughter's never been to a pediatrician. So I get it. But to get all worked up in a frenzy and have all our energy focused on fighting the wrong battle is, in my opinion, not really helping people out. I think sometimes we're listening even more fear in them. We can be listening fear in them, and fear is not what we need. Fear is the opposite of faith, and faith is knowing that your soul came here for a reason. There was contracts written beyond your understanding and awareness, and we are here to be connected with infinite. We're here to connect with that infinite source from which everything goes to and everything came from.
I agree. I agree. We could sit here and talk for the next 2 hours, but I think an hour and a bit's long enough. Thank Gabe. Like, you actually helped me shift some stuff live on air, and I'll never. Thank you, and I'm so grateful for you jumping on and sharing all this stuff today, mate. Some of those, it's just, I'm lost for words because it's so true. Like we all sign up to be here, and we obviously signed up before we even know it to probably do this to connect as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll know like you're on your soul journey when you get a tremendous amount of joy. So at 28 years old, you're honoring what your soul came to do. You know what I mean? You're not just being a typical 28-year-old. You're following your dreams, following your desires, learning more, and in essence, healing yourself, helping heal others, getting in tune with that. When you're on the path of your golden footprints, life becomes a tremendous adventure. And you realize that, hey, I'm doing what my soul came here to do, and I'm perfectly fine with whatever happens next. All these things are already written out before we came to Earth. We're here to learn. This is a school. Earth is a school. And I really in order to pass, you need to learn pure love and pure forgiveness for all, and not this judgmental stuff that we're constantly doing.
It's so true. I think the whole world needs to do a mass forgiveness ceremony to forgive themselves for allowing all this to happen, but then to also forgive those that have done it. And how
Right.
powerful would that be?
It'd be tremendous. It'd be
Mm.
tremendous. And we have to understand what forgiveness comes from. And forgiveness, it comes from, if you heard me talking on the other podcast with Tanner, you heard me say regress a woman back, um, and then I had to regress her into her parents in order for her to see, her parent as a child, her mother as a child, and only in that essence, from the heart, not from the brain, do you see that this person was already carrying the pain, and this person's pain made them act almost like an automaton, not a person at all, but a robotic being where the program is taken over. And in that essence, they would have done it if you were there or not. Then you realize that their behaviors toward me, or their behaviors toward whoever, their behaviors that caused pain, had nothing to do with me. It had to do with everything going on inside their head. What's going on inside their head, not what they did to me, what's going on inside of them. And when you really grasp that, there can be compassion and then forgiveness, because you realize it's not about you. It's about what's going on inside of them. And it spilled over. It affected you, but it had nothing to do with you personally. Make sense?
It makes sense because it sums up my last 3 years of jumping into this healing journey, mate, because I was regressed as well, to put myself in other people's shoes to understand what was going on. And what you just said there, I have done that. And to then have the love, compassion, and understanding, and it actually wasn't just done to me, mate. I
Right.
found myself crying quite a lot during these sessions I've had as well, because I was able to come to that place where I understand why this happened, and it wasn't done to me. But I
Right.
felt as though it was, but it actually wasn't.
Right.
And then to forgive it, mate. Yeah, I've written blogs about it and spoken about it before. It's just so powerful in it, because I laid on the table or wherever and with my friend that does this too. I just cried it out, mate. Completely cried it
Yep.
out.
Yep. And from then on, you look at those people that hurt you completely different, don't you?
Yes, I do.
That's what forgiveness is.
Yes.
Forgiveness is looking at them and having no sting whatsoever. No sting whatsoever, the people that did whatever they did. You could look at them and there's no sting in your body, no icky little background feeling. You've forgiven them. Because remember what the sting does? You're sending a signal out. And it doesn't matter if it person could be dead for 20 years. You still got the sting. And you know that how that little saying goes on bitterness, resentment, those kind of things are like swallowing poison and hoping they die, right? So love and forgiveness are the most
Yep.
powerful mechanical healing
They
assets we
are.
have.
They are.
They're the mechanics that get the cells moving, they get the body moving, they get the energy moving correctly.
I'll ask one last question and we can wrap it up. So if this all resonates with someone right now and they're sitting there and they've got those little icky feelings, they've got getting the memories to go back into love, compassion, understanding. If someone was just completely like I was this whole time, resonating with everything that you're saying, what would be your advice to those people to go and start their journey? You might have already said it, but we'll say it again.
If they want somewhere to start,
Mm.
I would say to go to YouTube and type Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian prayer that words say, I love you, sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And what most people do when they hear that at first is they go, I love you. I'm sorry. I didn't do anything. Please forgive me. Well, why forgive me when I didn't do anything? And you're not understanding that it has multiple timelines. There's multiple timelines that we are on. We are multi-dimensional beings. I regressed a woman the other day to the cause of her fear, to the cause of her feeling stuck in life and just unable to move forward. And whenever I took her back to this scene, I said, look down at your hands. Tell me what your hands look like in this moment your mind is taking you to. And she literally had deer hooves. Deer hooves. And I said, okay, what are you aware of in this scene? And she was trapped. I said, deer trapped. And the terror was just overwhelming. So that's where we had to go to get her free of this moment of feeling trapped. Does it make sense logically? Not really, but we're talking about a mind that's fast. Does remote viewing make sense logically? No. But you're talking about an infinite mind that we're all connected to, this infinite source. And when you're doing things like Ho'oponopono, just listening to that 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes as soon as you wake up and as soon as you go to bed, when your conscious mind is the most flexed and most flexible, and you can start to implement that in, that's a great way to start. And for most people, it'll make you feel uncomfortable. And most people will stop. The ones that don't stop will start to have more peace inside of them. So I would start with that, listening to that every day, over and over and over, regardless. You're not saying it to some person and you're not saying it out loud, but listen to that over and over and over. And if I had to say what it does, it makes things right on multiple timelines. Multiple timelines. So for somebody to start trying to get love and forgiveness when they might be carrying a lot of bitterness or resentment or anger or whatever else it is, that's a good place to start. And I don't care where you are in your journey, you can always benefit from that. Okay. Listen to that for several minutes a day, 5 minutes here and there. And I will tell you this. Most people don't do this, but whenever I drive around, when I drive to town, when I take my family, wherever, I will listen to nothing but that for hours in my truck, over and over and over. And all my kids learn to love it. My wife, we all listen to that over and over and over. So listening to that, again, clears things on multiple timelines. So that'd be a good place to start.
I know what I'm doing tonight and on the way to work today.
Have you heard of that before?
No, I haven't, mate. No, I'm literally going to go and jump on and have a look now and do it myself.
Jump on there. You can find
so it's on YouTube, yeah? So you put Ho'oponopono?
It's Ho'oponopono, and it's just understanding that whatever you impress in your subconscious mind is always amplified on the screen of space. It's always amplified in your experience. Whatever you put in there amplifies out. So if you're putting in there, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, you're putting in very, very healing vibrations, very healing, soothing vibrations that make things right on multiple timelines. Put it this way, I had a guy once say, this woman just betrayed me for some reason, and I don't get it. I mean, I don't get out of nowhere. She just did this. And I've had similar occurrences with people as me as well. And what I could think is, well, they're probably mad at me because me as a person today, I'm a former Marine. I take integrity very seriously. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a man of my word. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a man of my word, and I speak right from the heart. That's just it. Whenever somebody's upset with me, I know that maybe on some different timeline, a different Gabe somewhere else probably stole a goat from that person or probably did something like that. That's how interconnected we are without even realizing it. So if I start saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, it makes things right, even on those kind of timelines.
Wow.
Does that make sense? We are far more connected than you could possibly imagine. So when you're saying that, don't let the conscious, lying, rational mind say, I don't know why I'd say this. It doesn't make any sense. I didn't do anything wrong. Just do it because you're multi-connected. You're connected to a web of reality that goes well beyond what your five senses pick up. Interdimensional, multi-dimensional being. And when you do that, you're making things right. And here's what would be my opinion as well. If you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it later as a soul.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to relive that life again, just like
Yeah,
that guy I was telling you about. So why not start now?
exactly.
So that's what our souls are here to do. Is love and forgive. Love and
Yes,
forgive everyone. Love and forgive everyone. And I'm not saying we condone their actions. Just look at them as doing the ones that are the pedophiles and all this other stuff. They're acting as automatons, and there are soul contracts written out to make that take place.
exactly.
You're not going to be able to interfere with that with your limited human experience. You're not.
Mm.
So
That's a good way to finish, mate. We can probably leave it there. We all need to come together, everyone on earth, and do a love and forgiveness healing ceremony, and that will probably completely heal the planet and will heal ourselves. And that I
but
cannot wait for that day, because I reckon that day is coming, mate.
oh, for sure. The
Mm,
pendulum swings both ways, okay? Just through hermetic principles, the pendulum swings.
mm,
So it's just a natural law. The pendulum swings. And what we've experienced now is the pendulum swinging all the way to the extreme.
yep,
It's the extreme end from 2020 until, now. We've seen that extreme end go. So what can happen is it can only happen coming back the other way.
exactly.
It's just a universal principle, nothing to be try to control. But here we are here to do our soul's work, which is learn to be better, love and forgive.
That's a powerful message and a powerful podcast, and you're a powerful man, and you've helped me so much today, and I'm sure you've helped the hundreds or thousands that will listen, mate. I thank you for jumping on. I thank Jason for being able to connect us in this coaching group that we have, and it's really really awesome, and I'm so grateful that you jumped on, and that I did reach out, because that podcast you did do with Tanner was awesome, and this one was just as good, if not better. But thank you for jumping on, and this has been the Breaking Free podcast. I'm Nathan Francis, your host, and I'll be back next time with some awesome guests. And thank you for listening and watching wherever in the world you are. And thank you once again, Gabe. You're an awesome soul. You're living your soul journey, mate, and it's so inspiring for so many people. And the work you're doing is just unbelievable, mate. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing all of that with me today.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Nathan. It's been a pleasure.
No worries, mate. Thank you.